Our next story here, this is for you, Tom. This is from the Irish Examiner, and the headline is Rowntree's delight tempered by Munster's failure to reach bonus point territory.
Well, I suppose it sounds like we were on a negative trend today, and I'm afraid for Munster fans, I'm not going to break that trend on this one. Look, I think this was a case of Munster's line-out maul winning the game, and that's really it. You know, I'm sure Rowntree will be happy to get the win. I know Zebra have had a decent start and they gave us a good game, but you know, amongst the three big leagues in Europe, you know, they're down there near the bottom of teams. That's the reality until Zebra prove otherwise. So Munster will be very disappointed with this performance. As I said, apart from the line-out maul, that went well for most of the game, and the O'Mahony, etc., disrupting anything Zebra were trying to get from their line-out. It's a very short list after that. Went right for Munster after that. You know, even the first try, it was unbelievable how it was given. I know the game was won anyway, but you know how the TMO gave Scannell's first try is a mystery. It was a clear lock on at the line. Apart from, you know, and I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, apart from the cameos by Edwin Bogo and Rowan Quinn, and I like some of the stuff Pat Campbell does. He's a nice broken field runner. He brings that something different to Munster. There wasn't a lot to shout home about. I think their attacking game plan seems to be, you know, try and get it out to Fekatoa, and for him to bash his way through at least two or three. You know, they're really, he's a guy that's going to get injured, I would say, before this side of Christmas, because he's just been asked to carry dirty ball up all the time, and there's not much nuance to the play. I think both sets of Munster's 10s, Carberry and Healy, are struggling for different reasons. Healy, most of the time, just sits so deep that it makes the likes of Fekatoa's job a bit more awkward. I think what's his name, Rory Scannell coming back might help that as another kick. You know, he was back after a long injury. He replaced Goggin when he came on, so that might give them a different option. But yeah, I suppose the worrying thing from Munster's point of view is, I could be wrong here saying this, Rowntree's, and some of the pundits are saying it could be sort of February, March before the Munster shape, what they're looking for is take shape, and we can visibly see what's going to happen. But given the nature of the URC this year and the way the Champions Cup is structured with only 4 games, their season could be over by then. And make it worse, if their season could be over where they'll be struggling to qualify for Champions Cup. So yeah, it's worrying times for Munster. It doesn't seem to, from my point of view, it doesn't seem to be any green shoots there yet on what they're trying to do. You know, I'm sure, you know, and they're going to have a really difficult game in Connacht next week. I know they'll be missing Bundy, but I think Carty might be back. Connacht needs something to get their season going, and I think Munster are going to struggle there in Galway.
Mark?
Yeah, just the performances stand out for Munster the last couple of years of when they've had injuries and they've almost had their hands forced to play the youth guys, the younger guys, the less well-known guys, and those guys have never let them down. You know, the guys that, I don't say letting them down, but the guys that have been there for a few years, had chances, are just not performing. And I know people say form is temporary, class is permanent, but you know, Andy Farrell is a coach that wants to pick on form. So the guys that are coming in, you know, have no fear. They're not used to playing in teams that are young. Young Quinn has got something about him. The second row lad that came on as well. They just played with no fear. They went at Zebra. You know, they ran hard. O'Mahony, had his usual couple of line-out steals and a couple of good turnovers, but you don't want him to. You don't want to be relying on the 34-year-old flanker, 33-year-old flanker all the time to dig you out of games. Like, to dig you out of games against, like, say, Wasps in Europe, but you don't want to be digging out games against Zebra at home. You know,
and he was hobbling a bit, Mark, as well.
Yeah, he was. You know,
you're against Zebra and you're Munster at home. Now's the time to be taking Peter off. You know, he had a little bit of an ankle injury, so you're right. It's bad that they're relying on him.
Yeah, I think the young lads that have come out, I'm a big fan of Pat Campbell at fullback. I think, again, he has a kicking game. You know, most Cork Limerick lads that are playing will have played some sort of Gaelic football anyway, so you'd reckon that they can boot the ball when needs be. But he looks for space. You know, he looks to attack space. He looks to create space. I think he's a better option at fullback than somebody like Shane Daly, who's gone on tour with Emerging Ireland. I think you put your faith in these guys. I thought Calvin Nash, as Tom said, impressed me massively in the Emerging Ireland game, which he probably hasn't done for Munster. And again, as Tom said, the coaching that they're getting there is different. And I'll pull the Jason Jenkins card. Culture and coaching makes players as well, And I know he had some injuries down there, but you can see how certain players, if they're not indoctrined into a way of playing, it's that carefree attitude that they just go, I'm going to have a go. It's what they did against Wasps away in the Heineken Cup when nobody expected it, and they put Wasps to the sword when Wasps were playing very good rugby at the time. I think Munster, you're talking, as Tom said, if it takes to February to get your shape, you haven't done enough off-season work. You haven't done enough to hit the ground running. I just think it's time for the Munster lot to put faith in their youth, who they have some good players. They have some really good young players. Just let them play. Just let them play and let them learn. Let them learn through playing. There's lots of guys there with black marks against their name for a couple of seasons, and I think a lot of guys have had their chance.
Well, like you say, they're playing Connacht on Friday, so there's a lot riding on it. It's a big game earlier in the season. They both had bad starts, so we'll see how they get on. Just a quick thing on those lineouts. Was that a case of, like the previous week, we done so well at lineouts? They were all hitting. They were all sticking. But this one, you seem to see both Treadwell and O'Connor just, trying to anticipate the jump, time their jump, and just sort of get in there. Was it putting that little bit of extra pressure on them, kind of forcing it crooked, or was it just a mistake?
I think we hadn't enough variance to our lineout. We kept going to Conan. I could be wrong here, but for the previous ones, we just kept going to the same call. And, if you're going to do that, you're giving more clues to the opposition about where you're going to go for to just put pressure on.
One thing there, looking at it from a coaching point of view, you want your back your players to make the decisions, but also you need to feed in the right information. There's a lot of working parts to a lineout. There's less working parts to a scrum, and there's even less working parts to tap penalties, which the Bulls have almost got right now. They have a little variation to tap penalties. It's something I'd like to see us bring into our game. It doesn't take a lot of practice. It just takes a little bit of thinking outside the box. And as Tom said, it's a bit of a bugbear in mine. I still don't think we've got the right balance with our line out in terms of who calls it. It changes sort of all the time, and I'm not too sure either Maloney or Ryan or whoever else is the greatest line out caller in the world. I think we have a lot of tall timber. We've got a lot of good lifters. I'd like to see us get more variation in the line out, as Tom said. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Treaders is a very good defensive line out player. Alan O'Connor is a very smart rugby player as well. And they got up and disrupted. But it's that moving parts thing that I'd like to see Ireland and Leinster and general rugby teams in general. The line out is a very much a timing based set piece, less so in terms of scrums. You very rarely lose your own put in these days. Scrum has been depowered for whatever reasons over the years. Lineouts are much more coached and much more defended as well. And I think after having a dominant scrum, I just thought that was a little bit brainless on our part going for touch when we could have had another scrum. And you also at scrum you tie in 8 guys straight away, and you would have thought there'd be enough nuances in the Leinster backlines to exploit any space there.